The moment my sister smiled into the microphone and said, "This is my relative, the one nobody really talks about," the ballroom burst into uncomfortable laughter. I stood frozen near the back wall, still holding the wrapped gift I'd spent 3 weeks saving to buy. Nobody corrected her. Nobody looked at me. Not even my own nephews. I wanted to disappear. Then, just as I reached for the exit, a deep voice echoed from the stage. "Before anyone leaves, there's one guest I specifically asked to be here tonight." The room went silent. I hadn't heard my name yet. But something inside me whispered, "Please don't let this become even more humiliating." I wish I could tell you that my sister, Linda, had always treated me that way. She hadn't. That's what made everything hurt so much. My name is Claire. I'm 53 years old, divorced, and I work as the head librarian at our city's public library. I don't have expensive clothes. I don't drive a luxury SUV. I don't own a lake house like my younger sister. But for most of our lives, we were close. Or at least I believed we were. After our parents passed away 8 years earlier, Linda slowly became the center of every family gathering. She organized birthdays, holiday dinners, anniversary parties, graduations. Everyone depended on her. Everyone admired her. And somewhere along the way, people stopped calling me. At first I blamed adulthood. Busy schedules. Kids. Life. But eventually I noticed something strange. Every family photo appeared online without me. Every reunion happened on weekends I somehow never knew about. Every vacation album included cousins who lived across the country. Yet somehow I never received an invitation. Whenever I asked Linda about it, she'd smile. "Oh Claire, it was last minute." Or, "I thought you were working." Or my favorite, "I didn't think you'd enjoy it." Each excuse sounded reasonable. Until they started piling up. One afternoon I met our cousin Rebecca for coffee. Halfway through our conversation she casually asked, "So, how was Thanksgiving?" I blinked. "I worked." She looked confused. "Really? Linda said you couldn't come because you were visiting friends in Arizona." "I've never even been to Arizona." Rebecca nearly dropped her coffee. She quickly changed the subject. But that tiny conversation stayed with me for weeks. Why would Linda lie? Then Christmas came. I mailed gifts to everyone. No one acknowledged receiving them. 3 days later I saw photos online. Everyone was opening presents together. Mine weren't anywhere. I tried calling Linda. Straight to voicemail. Again. Voicemail. Again. Nothing. By New Year's, I started wondering if I had unknowingly done something terrible. Did I offend someone? Forget an anniversary? Say something insensitive? I replayed years of conversations inside my head. Nothing made sense. The hardest part wasn't being excluded. It was not knowing why. One rainy Tuesday I decided to stop wondering. I drove to Linda's house without calling. Her car was there. So was my nephew Ethan's truck. Voices drifted through the kitchen window. I wasn't trying to eavesdrop. I simply walked toward the front door. Then I heard my own name. Claire. Everything inside me froze. Linda sighed loudly. "We can't let her find out yet." Ethan answered. "What if Aunt Claire asks questions again?" Linda lowered her voice. "Just keep telling her she's busy." Busy? Busy doing what? My heart began pounding. I leaned closer. Another voice joined them. It sounded like my brother-in-law, Mark. "I hate lying to her." Linda replied instantly. "It's for the best." Silence. Then dishes clinked. Someone laughed. I backed away before anyone saw me. For the entire drive home, one sentence repeated inside my head. It's for the best. Whose best? Certainly not mine. That night I barely slept. The next morning my phone buzzed. It was my niece Olivia. For one hopeful second I thought she might explain everything. Aunt Claire, if Grandma were alive, she'd tell you not to worry. Before I could ask what she meant, she quickly whispered, I have to go. The call ended. Grandma? Our mother had been gone for years. Why mention her? The next week brought another strange moment. I stopped by the library cafe during lunch. Across the street, I saw Linda sitting with a man I'd never met. She handed him a thick envelope. He gave her several papers. When she noticed me through the window, she immediately stuffed everything into her purse. Then they left through separate exits. I crossed the street. Too late. Gone. That evening I called her. Who was that man? She laughed. What man? I saw you. Oh, probably someone from the charity board. She answered too quickly. Too smoothly. It didn't feel true. Over the next month, odd things kept happening. My birthday card from the family never arrived. Our cousin canceled lunch twice without explanation. My calls were returned less and less. Even Rebecca seemed distant now. Almost guilty. One Sunday after church I walked toward the parking lot. Linda was standing beside her SUV speaking with Rebecca. The second they noticed me, they stopped talking. Rebecca hugged Linda, then quietly walked away without saying goodbye. Linda smiled. Everything okay? I forced a smile back. Apparently. That night I opened social media. Linda had posted dozens of photos promoting our upcoming Family Heritage Gala. A fundraiser honoring generations of our family. Every cousin. Every aunt. Every uncle. Every nephew. Every niece. Everyone's name appeared on the guest list. Except mine. Not forgotten. Removed. I stared at the screen until tears blurred every word. Finally I sent Linda one message. Did you intentionally leave me off? She read it. No reply. Hours later. Still nothing. 3 days after that, an elegant cream-colored envelope appeared in my mailbox. No return address. Inside was a formal invitation. You are cordially invited to the Harrison Family Legacy Gala. No personal note. No explanation. Only one handwritten sentence at the bottom. Please come. No matter what happens, don't leave early. There was no signature. Just those 9 haunting words. I turned the card over again and again. Who had sent it? Why anonymously? And what was supposed to happen that night? For the first time in months, I wasn't just hurt. I was afraid. Because something told me the gala wasn't going to reveal why I'd been forgotten. It was going to reveal who had wanted me forgotten in the first place. And I had no idea whether I was ready to hear the truth. The anonymous note stayed on my kitchen table for 2 weeks. Every morning I picked it up. Every night I put it back down. Please come. No matter what happens, don't leave early. Those words refused to leave my mind. Who had written them? Why keep it secret? And why warn me not to leave? By the time the night of the Harrison Family Legacy Gala arrived, my stomach felt tied in knots. I almost stayed home. I even picked up my phone to text Linda. I'm not coming. Instead, I deleted the message. Something inside me needed answers more than it needed comfort. So I put on my favorite navy blue dress, the same one I had worn to my son's college graduation years earlier, and drove to the Grand Willow Ballroom. The parking lot was already full. Luxury cars lined every row. People laughed as they stepped onto the red carpet. Camera flashes lit up the entrance. I suddenly felt terribly out of place. Inside, volunteers welcomed guests with bright smiles. When the young woman at the registration table searched for my name, she frowned. "I'm sorry." My heart sank. "Here it comes." Then she looked again. "Oh." She quickly stood. "Mrs. Claire Harrison?" "Yes." She smiled nervously. "Someone personally requested that your seat never be changed." She handed me a gold name card. "Table 1. The closest table to the stage." I stared at it in disbelief. There had to be a mistake. Table 1 was reserved for major donors and honored family members. Before I could ask anything, another guest stepped between us. I walked toward the ballroom in silence. As soon as I entered, conversation slowed. People looked at me, then quickly looked away. Some smiled politely. Others didn't smile at all. It felt like walking into a room where everyone already knew a secret. Everyone except me. I spotted Rebecca. She hurried over and hugged me tightly. Too tightly. "I'm glad you came," she whispered. Before I could respond, tears filled her eyes. Then she simply walked away. Again. No explanation. Just another mystery. Across the room, Linda was greeting guests. Elegant emerald gown. Perfect makeup. Confident smile. She looked every bit the successful family leader everyone admired. When our eyes met, her smile disappeared. She walked over slowly. "I didn't think you'd actually come." I folded my arms. "I almost didn't." An awkward silence settled between us. Finally I asked, "Why wasn't I invited until the last minute?" She looked around before answering. "It was complicated. Everything with you has become complicated. I can't explain right now." "When can you explain?" She swallowed hard. "After tonight." "No." I shook my head. "You're explaining now." She looked genuinely frightened. Not angry. Not annoyed. Afraid. "Claire. I deserve the truth." She closed her eyes for a moment. "I know." "Then tell me." "I can't." Those two words shattered whatever patience I had left. For months I've been treated like I don't exist. She stayed silent. "You've lied to everyone about me." Silence. "You've excluded me from holidays." Silence. "You've erased me from family photos." Still nothing. Finally I asked the question that had haunted me for months. What did I ever do to deserve this? Linda looked like she might cry. But before she could answer, someone called her name from across the room. She whispered only one sentence before walking away. "I'm sorry." Sorry? That was it? Months of lies. Reduced to one word? I wanted to leave. Right then. Right there. I remembered the anonymous note. "Don't leave early." I stayed. Dinner began. The family laughed together. Stories were shared. Awards were announced. I barely touched my food. Then came the speeches. Linda stepped onto the stage first. The audience applauded. She thanked sponsors, volunteers, community leaders. Then she smiled toward my table. "I'd also like to recognize a relative who joined us tonight." My pulse quickened. Maybe this was finally it. Maybe she would apologize publicly. Instead she laughed softly. "You all know her." A few people chuckled. The relative nobody ever talks about. The room filled with uncomfortable laughter. Someone dropped a fork. Someone else looked down at the table. I felt every eye turn toward me. Heat rushed into my face. My chest tightened. I stood. I wasn't going to cry in front of them. Not again. I picked up my purse. Enough was enough. As I turned toward the ballroom doors, a man's voice interrupted from backstage. "One moment." The room instantly fell silent. The voice continued. Mrs. Claire Harrison. My legs froze. Please don't leave. Slowly. A gray-haired man in his 70s walked onto the stage. Perfectly tailored suit. Kind eyes. Confident posture. I recognized him immediately. Daniel Whitmore. The founder of Whitmore Literacy Foundation. The man whose scholarship programs had transformed thousands of children's lives across the country. He wasn't related to us. What was he doing here? He smiled directly at me. I've spent 6 months hoping you'd accept this invitation. The audience looked confused. So have I whispered. He continued. Tonight's event isn't only about celebrating the Harrison family. He paused. It's about honoring one extraordinary woman. My heart pounded. Surely he meant Linda. She organized the gala. She knew him. Everyone admired her. He looked toward Linda. Would you please join me? Linda walked onto the stage. Her hands were trembling. Daniel gently placed one hand on her shoulder. Then he looked back at me. Mrs. Harrison. I believe this belongs to you. An assistant rolled out a large easel covered with velvet fabric. Daniel pulled away the cloth. The screen underneath displayed dozens of photographs. Children reading books. Teenagers graduating. Families smiling. Libraries opening. Community centers filled with shelves. In nearly every picture, I recognized something. Books. Boxes. Furniture. Supplies. Many of them had once belonged to my library. Some had even come from my own house. I frowned. What was I looking at? Daniel smiled. Over the last 7 years, every anonymous donation that built our rural literacy program came from one person. The ballroom became silent. That person is Claire Harrison. Gasps echoed across the room. I stared in disbelief. No. There had to be a mistake. I had donated books. Old furniture. Some savings after my divorce. But not enough to build all of this. Daniel continued. What Mrs. Harrison never knew was that her sister secretly matched every donation. The room went completely still. I looked at Linda. She was crying openly now. Daniel spoke again. When Claire sold her late husband's watch to fund our first children's reading room, Linda quietly paid off the remaining construction costs. My knees weakened. When Claire anonymously donated her retirement bonus, Linda doubled it. When Claire gave us her parents' rare book collection, Linda created a trust fund in both of your names. The audience wasn't breathing. Neither was I. Daniel smiled gently. Every project succeeded because of two sisters. I couldn't process his words. Linda had helped me? Then why the lies? Why the exclusion? Why make me feel invisible? Daniel answered the question before I could ask it. Claire never wanted recognition. I nodded slowly. That was true. I asked Linda if we could honor Claire publicly. He looked at Linda again. She refused. The room murmured. She said. He unfolded a small piece of paper from his pocket. If my sister hears applause before she's emotionally ready, she'll disappear forever. She only knows how to give when nobody is watching. Tears rolled down Linda's face. Daniel continued quietly. So we waited. I couldn't move. But then, his smile faded. 4 months ago, Claire's medical insurance informed us that funding for several literacy centers might end because she had quietly stopped making donations. I blinked. Of course I had. My savings were nearly gone. I had never told anyone. Daniel looked toward Linda once more. That's when your sister made a decision. Linda whispered. I'm sorry. Daniel nodded. She sold her vacation cabin. The audience gasped. She transferred the money into the literacy trust. My heart stopped. No. That cabin had belonged to her husband's family. It was priceless to them. Daniel continued. She made everyone promise to keep the secret. Suddenly every strange clue from the past months crashed together in my mind. The mysterious meetings. The envelopes. The hidden papers. The whispered conversations. The cancelled gatherings. The lies. The silence. Everything had been about protecting a surprise I was never supposed to discover. Yet one question still remained. If Linda had sacrificed so much for me, why had she stood on that stage and introduced me as the relative nobody talks about? As Daniel slowly turned toward her with tears in his own eyes, he quietly asked the same question that every person in the ballroom was now desperate to hear. For one long, unbearable moment, no one in the ballroom moved. I couldn't. My eyes stayed fixed on Linda. She stood under the bright stage lights, tears streaming down her face, unable to look at me. Daniel Whitmore gently handed her the microphone. His voice was calm. Linda. I think your sister deserves to hear the whole truth. The room was so quiet I could hear someone crying near the back. Linda gripped the microphone with both hands. Her fingers shook so badly I thought she might drop it. When she finally spoke, her voice barely rose above a whisper. I deserve every bit of anger you're feeling, Claire. I wanted to interrupt. To ask why. To demand answers. But something in her face stopped me. This wasn't the confident woman who had organized every family celebration. This wasn't the polished hostess everyone admired. This was my little sister. The same little girl who used to crawl into my bed during thunderstorms because she was afraid of lightning. She looked broken. I never wanted you to hear those words from me. She closed her eyes. But if I hadn't said them tonight, none of this would have happened. I frowned. What are you talking about? She looked directly at me for the first time all evening. When Mom was dying. My heart skipped. She made me promise something. A wave of emotion swept through the room. Linda reached into her purse. She carefully unfolded a faded piece of paper. It was yellow with age. The edges were worn. I've carried this every single day for 8 years. She handed it to Daniel. He looked at me. Would you like me to read it? I couldn't speak. I simply nodded. Daniel unfolded the paper and began reading. Linda, your sister has always believed her value comes from what she gives to other people. I felt my throat tighten. She hides every good thing she does because she's afraid people will think she's asking for attention. That sounded exactly like me. I had never liked recognition. Even as a little girl. Daniel continued. One day, Claire will forget that she deserves to receive love too. Tears blurred my vision. When that day comes, don't tell her she's important. He paused. The entire ballroom leaned forward. Show her. Daniel folded the letter halfway. Your mother signed it the morning before she passed away. I covered my mouth. Mom. Linda took the microphone again. I thought I was following her wishes. Her voice cracked. I wanted the entire family to celebrate you. She looked around the ballroom. I wanted every scholarship student, every librarian, every teacher, every child whose life changed because of you. To be here together. I slowly looked around the room. Only then did I notice faces I hadn't recognized before. Young adults. Teachers. Parents. Children holding books. They weren't family. They were people whose lives had been touched by the literacy program. Some smiled through tears. Others quietly held photographs. Linda continued. But Daniel warned me. She laughed bitterly through tears. He said if you suspected anything, you'd never come. He was right. I knew he was. The moment I believed people were planning to honor me, I would have found an excuse to stay home. So? Linda whispered. I made everyone keep the secret. I nodded slowly. That explained the whispers. The phone calls. The meetings. The envelopes. But not the holidays? I asked softly. Why leave me out? The pain on her face deepened. I didn't. What? I invited you every single time. The room seemed to spin. I don't understand. She motioned toward Ethan. My nephew stood up slowly. His eyes were already red. Aunt Claire. He reached into his jacket pocket. One by one. He placed several unopened envelopes on the table in front of me. Birthday invitations. Christmas invitations. Thanksgiving dinners. Family reunions. Every envelope had my name written across the front. None had ever reached me. I stared at them in confusion. I mailed every one. Ethan swallowed hard. When they kept coming back. We thought you were refusing them. My mind raced. Coming back? I opened one envelope. Across the front was a bright red stamp. Undeliverable. Return to sender. Another. The same stamp. Another. Again. I looked up. But I've lived at the same address for 12 years. Mark stood. I know. He reached into his wallet. Then he placed something beside the envelopes. A faded change of address confirmation. My old apartment number. Not my current one. I suddenly remembered. 8 years earlier. Right after Mom's funeral. I'd submitted a temporary mail forwarding request while renovating my house. The postal clerk had accidentally entered the wrong apartment number. I corrected it months later. Or at least, I thought I had. Somehow. Part of the forwarding record had never been removed. For years. Family invitations had quietly disappeared into a system error. No one knew. Not even me. Rebecca burst into tears. We thought you hated us. I looked around the room. Every cousin. Every aunt. Every uncle. They all wore the same expression. Grief. Not guilt. Grief. Linda stepped closer. The first few times I drove to your house. I looked at her. You were working. I left notes. I never got them. I know. She smiled sadly. They probably blew away. The room filled with gentle laughter through tears. The kind of laughter that comes only after months of pain. But then, Linda's smile disappeared. I made the biggest mistake of my life. I already knew. The lies. She nodded. I convinced myself protecting the surprise mattered more than explaining the truth. She wiped away tears. Every lie made the next lie easier. She looked at everyone. I kept saying we'd fix it later. Then she looked back at me. But later never came. Until tonight. Silence settled over the ballroom. I slowly stood. Every eye followed me. I walked toward the stage. Each step felt heavier than the last. Linda remained perfectly still. Almost like she expected me to walk past her. Instead, I wrapped my arms around her. She broke down instantly. Not graceful tears. Not quiet crying. The kind of sobbing that shakes your entire body. I'm so sorry. She repeated the words over and over. I'm so sorry. I cried too. I should have asked instead of assuming. No. She shook her head. I should have trusted you with the truth. For a long time. Neither of us let go. The ballroom disappeared. There were no speeches. No applause. Just two sisters who had lost years because fear had spoken louder than love. Eventually Daniel stepped forward. I believe there's one last surprise. He smiled toward the side entrance. The ballroom doors opened. Dozens of children walked inside carrying books. Each book had a small card tucked inside. One little girl, no older than 8, walked directly toward me. She held out a worn copy of Charlotte's Web. Inside the cover was a handwritten note. Dear Mrs. Harrison. I used to think books were only for other people. Now I want to become a teacher. Thank you for believing in children you've never met. She hugged me before I could say a word. Then another child came. And another. And another. Soon I was surrounded by children, teenagers, parents, and teachers. Every one of them had a story. A scholarship. A library. A reading room. A book that changed their future. I realized something then. I had spent my entire life believing that being invisible was the same as being humble. It wasn't. Sometimes allowing people to thank you gives them joy too. Months later, Linda and I started a new tradition. No more assumptions. No more silent sacrifices. Every first Sunday of the month, our entire family gathered at the library. Not for parties. Not for speeches. We simply read together. Children sat beside grandparents. Teenagers helped younger kids sound out difficult words. Neighbors became friends. The library became louder than it had ever been. And I loved every minute of it. One afternoon, while organizing returned books, Linda walked beside me. She smiled. You know. What? You're still terrible at accepting compliments. I laughed. Probably. She bumped my shoulder gently. But you're getting better. I looked around the library. Children laughing. Families reading. Shelves filled with stories waiting to change another life. Then I looked at my sister. I wasted months believing I was the relative nobody talked about. She smiled through misty eyes. No, Claire. She squeezed my hand. You were always the relative everyone quietly thanked. That sentence has stayed with me ever since. Because families aren't broken only by betrayal. Sometimes they're broken by silence. Sometimes love hides behind awkward mistakes. Sometimes people protect each other in the wrong ways. And sometimes, the words that hurt us most are only one small chapter in a much larger story. So now, whenever someone I love grows quiet, I don't fill the silence with fear. I fill it with a question. Because asking with love can save years of unnecessary heartbreak. And if my story leaves you with one lesson, let it be this. Never mistake silence for the absence of love. Sometimes the deepest love is simply waiting for the right moment to speak.